First major battle of the Vietnam War, 50 years ago, this last November 14th. And I was a radioman driver orderly to Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, who is now considered the best infantry battalion commander in the 20th century, the last 100 years.
Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore is played by Mel Gibson in the movie We Were Soldiers, released in 2002.
Ronnie Guyer was born in Oakland, California, June 10, 1942, 6 months after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
Shortly after Disneyland opened in 1955, he moved to Long Beach and coincidentally got to meet Walt Disney.
The Mouseketeers was a TV show that was promoting Disneyland. Youngsters who were dancing and playing, they were actors and stuff. And one of them was the older one, was a really good dancer. And he came out to teach some of us how to ballroom dance in our high school years at the Women's Civic Club in Garden Grove. His name was Bobby, Mouseketeer Bobby Burgess. So I was taught how to ballroom dance, which means swinging fast and twist and all that. And we thought we had died and gone to heaven. We were going to be good Mouseketeers in the Mickey Mouse Club when we grew up. And boy, we thought we had died and gone to heaven, and we had. It was terrific.
How did you feel about Vietnam when you were there?
That's a good question, because I went over with an open mind, because I got to see at the very beginning, well, what are we doing there, and it's a good thing that we're there? And the answer is, when I was in that first major battle of the Vietnam War with all these excellent Communist Army regular troops from North Vietnam that were trying to take over South Vietnam, I was taking care of our casualties. I wasn't at the landing zone where our men were surrounded. I was the next clearing or landing zone out where the artillery was, and I was the S1 personnel clerk for that battle, which meant that I was taking care of the casualties. I was helping categorize and identify our killed and wounded when they came to us in a helicopter 3 air minutes from the battle. And so as I'm carrying our dead and wounded, the bloodied dead and wounded from helicopter to helicopter, I'm stunned. This Mouseketeer, who grew up next to Disneyland, is stunned to see that there really are people out there in this world who hate the free for being free. There really is such a thing as hate in this world, and that blew me away firsthand that first morning. And then there really are people out there in this world who hate the free for being free. And so that's defined me for the rest of my life. What are we? We're free.
What was the best thing about Vietnam?
For me, being part of history. For me, being part and making history. I knew things were going to be different from that moment that I saw the incident about the battle and the guys who were sacrificing on behalf of others. I found that, my God, as I'm witnessing things, and I had my own radio listening to all the guys who were fighting, and our artillery is right there being called in on them to protect them and stuff, and I knew all the officers, I knew everybody there, and I was stunned to witness from what I could this way, and then later on in the book, how much love there is on the battlefield. One American for another. Guys would sacrifice their lives so that others might live. Heroic stuff. Now, where do we get such people like that? So we might live or be victorious in battle. And I was stunned to be part of that. So that hate versus love has been my definition of my life for the rest of my life. I'm a very happy man. Why? Because I've spent the rest of my life supporting and sacrificing on behalf of others. The true happiness in life does come from sacrificing on behalf of others. The more the sacrifices, the greater the sacrifices, the greater the happiness. You're looking at a happy guy, even though I wasn't part of the Mickey Mouse Club any longer. Thank you.
How do you feel about Vietnam after you returned home?
Time to be free. They are not free, which means what you're doing right here is something they probably can't do there. Okay? They don't have free access to the internet. They are punished for their religious activities. There are people held in prison without any rights. They have no human rights. So the ones that are in control and the ones that get the money are the communists that won from the North. The Vietnam War was about, supposedly by history saying it's to reunify the North with the South, but the North was communist. And the communist North wanted to communize the South and then communize all of Southeast Asia once they took over South Vietnam. Then they wanted to go around and take over all the rest of the other countries. The problem for them was that while we were in Vietnam for 10 years and spending all of this men and material and blood to maintain freedom for South Vietnam, it empowered all the other countries in the area to build up their defenses and become economically strong so that they could fend off invasions or revolts from inside that would try to communize the other countries. So the main area of Southeast Asia remained free because we were there, okay? And because of our sacrifices. And I might add, where do we get such wonderful people to do those things? From you. Americans are just truly extraordinary.
Where were you stationed, and where were most of your enemy engagements, if any?
Enemy engagements were in Central Highlands of Vietnam. I was mortared, meaning rockets coming in. I was fired upon. Anyone know what this is?
The Purple Heart is awarded to those who were wounded or killed in the U.S. military.
That's right, for being wounded in action. That's mine from 50 years ago. Almost exactly, that's March of 1966. I was due to go home in about 2 weeks, and our last operation we flew in on helicopters. We were the unit to have experimental tip of the spear, 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile. We came off the top of a mountain with grass that was about as tall as a table, maybe a little less. And we were carrying all of our gear, and we're going down a hill like this. We're about 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet in the air. And as we're walking down, all of a sudden the man in front of me falls off to the left. And I said to myself, what's he falling off to the left for? No sooner had I said that to myself, I'm falling off to the right. And we were literally knocked down with our momentum. And something had stopped us or something, like a bullet or something. And we're down there, and I said, well, wait a minute, something's happened to my leg. And I look down, and I have a puncture. And someone runs up with these little sticks that have been put into the ground that you can't see in the high grass, that's been sharpened to a point, like a razor blade, okay? And they're called punji sticks.
A punji stick or punji stake is a type of booby trap stake. It is a simple spike made out of wood or bamboo, generally placed upright in the ground or in dirt and grass to conceal it.
Or they take that stick and they dip it in excrement from water buffalo or something, or put it in poison. So when it hits you, it can infect you or kill you. In my case, that's what these were. It had rained or something, because whatever was on them or wasn't on them had rained off. So what had happened is the man in front of me had walked into that spear from the side, and it went through his calf, okay, and came out right in time and straightened out right in time for me to walk straight into it. So it hit the front of my leg. And mine only went in about that much. But I went home with this, okay? After carrying all these dead and wounded from helicopter to helicopter in battle. And so I never really paid much attention to this, because by comparison, it was a very inexpensive Purple Heart. But God put it there for a reason, because I'm a Purple Heart veteran, and that means something. So I do share it, so.
This is a photo of Ronnie Guyer and his fellow veterans at the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C. They are being honored for serving in the war.
And the top military man in the United States, General Peter Pace, who had just been appointed as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top military man of the country, was standing there as a Marine, shaking our hands and congratulating us as we walk in.
What was the worst thing about Vietnam?
Well, you're always afraid. You're always concerned about incoming rounds or artillery. That was always, you were never not ill at ease until you got on that plane in Saigon to fly home. And then when you landed at Travis Air Force Base near Oakland, California, I almost came off the plane and dropped right down to the ground to kiss the California asphalt. In Vietnam, you have bugs. Lots of them. You have lots of scorpions going around, and millipedes this big, this wide, with all these little
Ooh.
Oh, and they came up, well, the only way you could stop them from coming at us, and they do is you just take a bayonet or knife and cut them in half, and that takes care of that. In Vietnam, we, in our headquarters company, we set up two-man tents, which are about the length of this table and a little wider, like this, with our ponchos, which is a covering. And two men, we'd blow up our air mattresses, and just big enough for two men to sleep in at night. Well, we had about 100 of us guys in these little two-man tents in this square area like this, right? Say about from home base to third base, and to first base and back. Okay, that kind of square. And after being there 5 days and nights, the sergeants came out and the people from the mess tent, meaning the food folks, they said, "Pick up your gear, get out of that area." And we said, "Why?" And they said, "You'll see." Okay, and so we did, and we all stood back and watched what the cooks did after that. They came out with these canisters, these metal round canisters that carried some kind of liquid inside of them with a spigot on the top, and they'd walk into this clear area that we were in, okay, before, and they start pouring this. They turn over the canister and turn the spigot, and it looked like they were pouring water onto the ground. But what they were doing was pouring the liquid into holes that were there. There were little holes all over the place, okay? And then we saw them, when they did that, these tarantulas started coming up, these families of tarantulas, that's right, would start coming up. And when they did, the cooks would immediately take a match and set them on fire. So this whole place that we'd had just slept in for 5 days, when they were finished, this whole area was practically entirely black with burnt critters. The whole place. Hundreds and hundreds. We've been sleeping for 5 days. Thank you. Okay? There are bugs everywhere. Okay? One time, we had one guy, I woke up one morning out in the field in an operation, and he'd been sleeping under his half part of the tent that's just his own on an air mattress, and he wakes up in the morning, he's got a little nylon blanket on top of him, and I look over at him, and I said, "We better wake him up. He had a family of scorpions, a mother and little babies right here on the side." And I said, "Wake up, wake him. Why?" I said, "Because there's a family of scorpions on your stomach." And he quickly goes like this with his bayonet knife. It's over here on the side, picks it up, goes just like that, and switches them off that way.
Vietnam is home to many different types of venomous snakes. They even have snakes that will kill you within 2 steps after being bitten. These are called two-steppers.
The last night I was in the hill after the Purple Heart incident when I came back, they put me on a point. The hill was down like this, right where I'd walked. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, they said, "You have the next till dawn. You're going to be watching for any enemies that come on at us." And we put little flares out there going down the hill, starting about 14, 15 feet from me. And I'd been out there for only half an hour. And all of a sudden, a flare goes off, which means a trip flare. Something hit it on a wire. And so I put my flashlight up like this to see if I could see any movement or anything, and I couldn't see anything, so I dismissed it. And it was only in a reunion in this century that I found out that when I was in this flare was definitely tripped. There's a ravine right behind us, and then helicopters at the other side of that ravine, little gully. And when those guys had woken up that morning, from the helicopters, they heard something, and it was running. The guys had been throwing their empty cans of food and stuff, down into this gully, okay? And they both looked over there, and they had some leftover food down there. When they went over to see what the noise was all about, it was a tiger rolling around in that stuff. The thing that had tripped my trip flare 14 or 15 feet, I was going home in a week, was a tiger. Yes.
Try to see it my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? While you see it your way, run the risk of knowing that our love may soon be gone. We can work it out. We can work it out. Think of what you're saying. You can get it wrong and still